Hey looters, Flutes here. Today I'm going to talk about a classic D&D mechanic. Undead creatures used to be far more deadly and frightening because of a feature called level drain. 4th edition and 5th edition kind of did away with it, for some good reasons, but let's see if we can give some teeth back to the undead creatures of 5th edition, more so than what they currently have. Today on Flutes Loot. Don't forget you can check in the description for a link to an article that accompanies this video, so it's all written up for you, no notes to be taken, it's all there. If you're new to the channel, my wife Opal and I maintain flutesloot.com, plus a bunch of guest writers who are amazing at what they do, and we create videos to go along with our articles here on YouTube. So subscribe and hit that bell icon if you like this kind of content and you just want more D&D in your life. I recently watched a video on YouTube by a channel called the Old Warlock. It's a father and son duo, which I think is really cool. They're not fans of 5th edition, but they play some of the older editions, and they have some great points of view. I especially like their video about going out into nature. It's very well filmed. It's semi-comedic, kind of like The Office with their zoom-ins and everything. Very well done. But they have another video that was talking about how level drain was so important in the past editions of D&D, because it made undead creatures so terrifying. If you don't know what level drain is, let me explain my experience with it, which was from Baldur's Gate 2, and there were so many vampires in that game as part of the main quest that would hit you, and your characters would literally lose levels. Like, their hit points would go way down, all their high level spell slots were suddenly gone, their attacks were worse, their defenses were worse. Level drain was horrible. It really hurt, and there was only a few spells that could undo it if you didn't go to a temple to get healed up. So without those restoration spells in the party, you were sunk. I always had like 2 clerics in the party because I just hated level drain so much. And even if you survived it and restored it, you had to like re-prepare all your spells and everything, and it was an ordeal. But I like that sense of danger that came from those old mechanics. It might have been a good move to get rid of level drain in general for 5th edition, because it feels clunky to make players have to backtrack their character sheets and figure out what they would be like if they were like 3 levels lower. I admit the average player probably wouldn't enjoy that sort of penalty, and the DM probably wouldn't either, because you have to help everyone like downgrade in the middle of combat and then beyond. So despite my Reddit post and meme about this topic, I don't necessarily think level drain specifically should come back. But I do think the mechanics that are in 5th edition with the undead should be enhanced a little bit to make them more dangerous. One Redditor who is new to 5th edition said, "What? Undead were nerfed? I think they're crazy as they are now." And that Redditor made a lot of good points. That's what I want to do today as well, is take those points and say, how can we make undead a little bit scarier, especially monsters like vampires that will just drain your maximum HP, but then you just get it back on a long rest. I think we can bare minimum make a few tweaks to just make it a little more scary, and no one has to do it because it's not part of the game. I'm just going over some homebrew ideas for how you can make these undead draining type effects more long lasting or more impactful, to just put the fear of the undeath into your players. And no, this is not a DM versus the players, like I'm gonna kill them all sort of thing. No, many players enjoy a good challenge, and so the scarier your monsters and the more they fit the theme that those monsters go with, the more your players are going to be happy if they're into that sort of game. If they're not, keep playing 5th edition, and these sorts of draining effects, don't worry about them. If I can give an example, Frodo from Lord of the Rings was stabbed with one of the Nazgul's swords in the Fellowship of the Ring. That wound was like a curse to him for the whole series and beyond the end of the books, because it just always was this festering wound, and it was an otherworldly kind of pain and suffering he went through because of that. That's the sort of cinematic feel I'm going for with these ideas. And obviously, you don't have to mechanically hurt a character to describe their wound as always affecting them. Like, a player can do that through role-playing, no problem. But for those who like to codify things a little bit more, here are some ideas, starting with what's already in 5th edition that resembles the old level draining conditions and mechanics. So first of all, Exhaustion is a semi-draining effect that just keeps wearing you down. Hit dice is another life force, you could say, that gets expended as you are being worn down and resting and trying to keep your health up. For monsters, and I mentioned this before, vampires, they drain your maximum HP when they bite you based on the necrotic damage they deal. The problem with that is, and let me know if this has happened to you DMs, where you tell a player that their character's maximum HP has been reduced, the fight ends, and they say, "How long is this going to last?" You either tell them right then, "Oh, long rest," and then they're like relieved and it's like not a big deal. Or you say, oh, you don't know how long it's going to go away. And then as soon as the rest comes around, you say, oh, and you're back to normal. And they're like, yay. And then from then on, they like never fear the max HP drain. Now I know it can be the way you're running the game. Yes, you can keep wearing down players so their max HP matters and they're not going to have a rest after every single fight. You can totally do that. But if you don't want to just swarm them and totally overwhelm them, you could just make that one vampire lord, like a certain one behind me over here, a little bit more formidable by making effects like maximum hit point drains last longer. I'll get into how long they should last and how to get rid of them a little bit later. But let's keep talking about monsters that do similar effects. Wights are another undead creature that have a hit point draining effect, but they actually give you a saving throw when they do so with their attacks. Vampire bites, you just take the damage and that's it. The Shadow is another undead creature that actually does a strength sap. It drains your strength, and if you hit 0 strength, you die. Even a level 20 wizard, if you have 8 strength and the Shadow hits you twice and you roll the d4s and both of them are 4s, you could die as a level 20 wizard in like 2 rounds to a Shadow. And then mummies are great too because they have a curse effect, mummy rot. It keeps draining your hit points over time until you remove the curse. Resting won't help you, so it just keeps draining you until you die and you just turn to dust. Super cool, and it puts the fear into your players, not the fear that makes them think you are combative with them like DM versus player, once again. Just excitement that there's danger, that the stakes are high. And then the Sibriex, I think is what it's called, for the demon from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. It's like this big amalgamation, grotesque demon that's like chained up, and it warps people's flesh is its thing. You can get some pretty horrible effects from it that involve exhaustion. So back to exhaustion. And that goes away if you save against this thing. So it's not as far reaching, but it's a similar effect in that it instills exhaustion in you and poisons you and starts wearing you down in the battle. So based on those existing mechanics, how can we expound on them a little bit? Before I go over this, quick reminder to like and subscribe to this video if you like the content. We'll be around quite often, so scry on us in your subscription feed. So first of all, do not overdo it with these mechanics. Kind of get the feel for what your players are going to enjoy. Don't just completely stack on crazy life force sucking effects without them seeing it coming, because they might think you're out to get them. Like I said, you might know you're not, but they might misunderstand. And so communicate with them if you're going to make things a little bit more intense than they're used to, if they're veterans of 5e, or if they're new, not as big a deal because they'll just assume that undead are very scary, and so this is what's happening to them. So idea number 1 is to use exhaustion. When maximum hit points are reduced, let's say, you could also throw in a level of exhaustion. That is devastating, especially if you get hit more than once. So maybe you would do the necrotic damage from a vampire's bite is like, yeah, you lose the maximum hit points, but you also make a saving throw and maybe the DC is like the damage you took, or maybe it's a flat rate. I don't know. But the point is you gain a level of exhaustion if you fail, and so it's like your life force is being drained from you. You could do the same with the Mummy Lord. As they're losing their maximum hit points day after day, maybe they're also gaining exhaustion. So you don't know if they're going to hit maximum hit points 0 first or 6 levels of exhaustion first, but either way, it can be a big deal. I played in a campaign where we had a similar effect with a non-undead. It was a Slod, where the party was infected with the phage, and they were going to become Slod. And so we had to cure them fast. You know, it was a very big ordeal. And so that's not even an undead example, but it's an example of seeing that urgency and all the players coming together like, we need to take a break from our quest. We just have to take care of each other and take care of this problem. And it was a lot of fun to deal with that. One of the highlights of the campaign for me. Another idea for replacing this like level drain concept in 5th edition is to have your proficiency bonus start going down. So instead of your level draining, you just lower your proficiency bonus. Proficiency bonuses already scale with character levels, and all characters use proficiency bonus, so it's not gonna like favor some that don't need it like strength would. A little -1 here, and then you get to like a -3, and if your proficiency bonus gets to 0, you're going to be really sad. Maybe you don't die because of it, but you just are completely sapped and drained. Proficiency bonus would definitely hurt the character mechanically, and players would feel that for sure. Whether they need their DC to be high or their attacks to hit, all of it. The third idea, based on my Baldur's Gate experience that I mentioned, is your spell slots get depleted. I don't know if you would start at the low-level spell slots, or if you would do the Baldur's Gate way, and because you're losing your higher levels, your top spell slots are the first to go. That would make people really sad, especially if they couldn't get them back from just resting. They needed to be restored with a restoration spell or something. That would really put spellcasters on their back foot, and they would not want to go into dungeons with vampires or whoever would be draining their spell slots. The fourth idea is an enfeeblement sort of effect for the melee attackers and the dexterity range attackers or whoever that aren't using spells so much. This enfeeblement would be a penalty to their damage rolls. So let's say they have 3 levels of drain, of whatever you want to call it. Every time they roll damage for their attacks, you do a -3. And that would really put martial characters on their back foot. They would not like that for too long. We gotta get cured, we gotta get out of here. So the spell slot ones for spellcasters, the enfeeblement for martial classes. Maybe you tailor it to the characters, maybe you make it vary based on the monster, like some monsters enfeeble you physically, some enfeeble your mind and your spellcasting. You could go either way. Idea number 5 would be constitution reduction, because pretty much any character wants to have at least an okay constitution. So if you start reducing their constitution similar to the shadow doing the strength drain, that could be scary because your hit points are going to naturally go down with your constitution. So you're effectively lowering your max HP, but also your constitution going down. So I would say it's worse. It might even outpace just taking damage from a vampire, because if your constitution goes down, you take a damage per level you had. So yeah, that would be pretty devastating. Concentration gets worse. Barbarian armor class could get worse. There's a lot going on there. Number 6, probably the most mild suggestion, is to deplete their hit dice. I find that most games that I've watched and that I play in don't use short rests much. And if they do, they don't usually need a lot of hit dice. So that's why I say this is a pretty mild penalty. If an undead creature bites you or swipes at you and you lose your hit dice, I think most players wouldn't mind that too much unless you're giving them the kind of campaign where they need those short rest heals. Then you've got something golden. Run with it. And then number 7, do actual level drain in 5th edition. A Redditor who posted on my meme pointed out that 5th edition is more simple than past editions that used level drain. So even though I think level drain would have been clunky and taken a while, and I'm not convinced most players would be able to handle it on the fly or even with a weekend in between games to figure it out, 5th edition should in theory be more simple to do actual level drain. You'll want to make sure that the players are very familiar with their characters and they have all the progression sheets for their spell slots, their character class features, everything. You can decide whether you want to also drain away like their stats when they got ASIs or the feats they acquired at certain levels. You can kind of pick and choose. Like you could do like, oh, your spell slot progression slows, you lose extra attack, but we're not going to do much more than that. Keep it kind of simple. Your hit points go down, or you could just do all of it. It's really up to you and what you think would be fun. But just because 5th edition doesn't have it codified into its monsters doesn't mean it can't be done. Let me know if you try it, or if you have tried it. I am really curious to see how it would go. I don't think I would go for the complete level drain. I kind of lean towards just making some of these basic effects in 5th edition last longer and not just go away with a rest. That would be the simplest way, and I usually err on the side of going simple to avoid having to rework more things than I anticipated once I get into the weeds. Which option do you lean towards? Please let me know in the comments. So how would these draining effects be remedied? One way, similar to Baldur's Gate, is to have a restoration spell. Maybe lesser restoration could be buffed to remove these sorts of undead curses and lingering effects, or maybe they would need to stick with greater restoration. Greater restoration is a high level spell with a material cost that's pretty expensive, and it already uses mechanics for getting rid of one level of exhaustion. It would actually be very natural if you did go the route of using exhaustion as the mechanic for these lingering undead effects that's similar to level drain, because then greater restoration is already codified to deal with that. And some classes would also do better with it, like rangers with their new Tasha feature. When they long rest, I think they get rid of 2 levels of exhaustion instead of 1. So that's one way that there are mechanics already in the game that some players would be very happy with their features helping them. But you got to keep those in mind because it might not give the effect that you're going for. Other healing effects that I could see being useful other than Wish, which like if someone becomes a vampire or whatever, often it takes a Wish spell to restore them. Regenerate, Heal, and Power Word Heal I think would be great. They're high level spells. I think Regenerate could also be active on you to prevent undead from siphoning your life force because it's constantly being refreshed with Regenerate, so maybe it also protects you from undead. But after the fact, if you were drained in some way, Regenerate maybe helps you get that back. Heal is a very powerful healing spell. It already like cleanses you and gives you a bunch of hit points. Maybe it could help you with your lingering effects too. Same thing with Power Word Heal. Going to low level spells, Protection from Evil and Good might be a great way to protect yourself from undead draining effects. It already protects you from being possessed and from their attacks, So maybe it should also give you advantage against those draining effects, or if you're not going to use saving throws for those effects, maybe protection from evil and good just makes you immune to those effects during its duration. It is a concentration spell, so it is costly to have it going, but if you're really afraid of undead creatures, maybe you pay that price. And the other way would be just to add more time. Instead of it being a long rest to work off your maximum hit point drain or whatever, maybe it takes a week. Maybe you do have to go to the temple and make a donation and ask for a restoring agent or something. Maybe there's a quest involved. But either way, you could just add in some existing time and questing in order to get rid of the draining effects. So seriously, please go to the comments and let me know what you think. I am excited about this. It's Halloween, and I've seen a lot of internet buzz about level drain specifically, and it got me interested after my Baldur's Gate 2 experience. So what does 5th edition need with level drain? Does it need anything? Is it fine as it is and you just run the campaign in a way that really utilizes those monsters best? Or do you want to amplify those monsters' effects a little bit more? No wrong or right answers, just the answer that works for you and your group and what would be fun. I also have a poll set up in the article if you want to check that out. It just asks for everyone's experience with level drain. I want to know who's used it and who thought it was clunky, who used it and it didn't slow the game down at all, and it's not 5th edition, I'm just asking about like any edition. I've already gotten some results that were pretty even. Some people said it was clunky, some people said used it but no opinion, some said it was used but it really made no difference to the overall flow of the game, which was refreshing to hear. I think that's all I have for you today. So seriously, use your keyboard and cast message down in the comment section. I really want to talk about this mechanic and hear your thoughts and opinions. That'll do it for today. I'm Flute saying have a good game this weekend, and I'll see you later. Bye.